I hurried towards the athletic track to join up with Kiba. 3 of Lord Riser Phoenix's pawns have been retired. Another announcement. It sounded like someone defeated 3 more members of his familia. The question was, who? I was still on the move, Akano was engaged with Riser's queen, and the present Azia should have been en route to their next target. It could have only been Kiba. If Riser had lost 7 pieces, then he had 9 left, including himself. We had lost Konako, which left us with 5. We were still at a disadvantage. Out of nowhere, someone grabbed my arm. An enemy? I thought. I was a long way from the athletic track. I braced myself for the worst, only to find that it was Kiba. He was wearing his usual disarming smile. Huh? Oh, it's you, I said. Yep. It looked like he had been keeping an eye on the events at the athletic track from a safe distance, behind the storage building at the edge of the grounds. Sorry, Kiba. Konako. I know. I heard the announcement. It's a shame. I can never really tell what she's thinking, but she was putting her all in this match. She went over and beyond when we set our traps in the forest. We'll win this. Of course we will, Issei. We bumped our fists together. Kiba might have been a cursed pretty boy with a regular school life, but here on the battlefield, he was the best of allies. We were the only 2 male members of the Occult Research Club. If we had failed to prove our worth here, there was no way we'd be able to show our faces to the girls. Was it you that took down the 3 of their pawns? I asked. Kiba nodded. Yeah, the clubhouses next to the athletic grounds are a strategic area. It was only natural that our enemies would want to occupy them. All I did was lure out the pawns who they had on lookout and round them up. Their boss kept their cool and didn't respond though. I guess she used the pawns to evaluate how I would attack. It looked like Riser Phoenix didn't mind sacrificing his pieces so long as it gives him an advantage. But he could only take that approach thanks to the size of his familia and his own immortality, of course. The corners of Kiba's mouth rose up in a faint grin, but his eyes remained serious. He's deployed a knight, a rook, and a bishop out there. 3 pieces in total. That leaves us badly outnumbered, I muttered. Well, it goes to show how much they don't want us taking it. Now that we destroyed the gymnasium, this is a logical place to gather our forces. Kiba had a point. The gymnasium and the athletic grounds were 2 main routes between the old and new school buildings. With one of those avenues already eliminated, the only place they needed guarding against was this one. It was a natural move to concentrate one's forces there, although it was true that our attack on the gymnasium had forced their queen into the front line. By the looks of things, our battle at the athletic ground was shaking up to be more intense than the gymnasium. I was kind of scared. Are you feeling nervous? Kiba asked with a smile. I felt my cheeks flushing. Of course I am. I barely have any combat experience, and I've been thrown into the deep end. Compared to everything you've been through, I'm a small fry. I did have a boosted gear, and that counted for something, but it didn't exactly mean much with me as its user. It was really a useless treasure. Even if it was, I already made up my mind to fight for Rias. I had to do something for her. No matter how weak I was on the field, I wasn't going to let anyone take me down without a fight. If I was going to be defeated, I wanted to at least take as many of them as I could with me. That oath had been etched into my heart. Look here, Kiba said, showing me his hands. They were shaking. You said I had a lot of combat experience, Issei. That may be true, but this is still my first time fighting in a raiding game. It's a genuine battle between 2 teams of demons. While this may be a unique situation, we're still fighting for real. We're going to have to do this again countless times down the line, but this is our first game. We can't afford to give our opponents even a single opening. As the President's Familia, we have to do everything we can, because this is a pivotal moment for us, something that will stick with us forever into the future. It's a joyous thing, but it's also terrifying. I certainly won't forget how badly my hands are trembling. This nervousness and tension will become the source of nourishment, and I will use it to better myself. We both have to be stronger, Issei. Kiba. It sounded like he had been thinking long and hard about all this. He was really dedicated when it came to combat. In that case, let's show the girls what this pairing is capable of, I declared. Does that make me a top then? I'm the top, you idiot. No, wait, damn you, pretty boy. He managed to get me completely pulled out of this rhythm. What am I doing? At that moment, a loud, inspired voice rang out. I am Carlamine, Knight of Master Riser. I tire of us trying to probe each other's tactics. Knight of Rias Gremory, what do you say we settle this sword to sword? A woman clad in full suit of armor strode gallantly out on the baseball pitch. What boldness! She would have had no excuse if someone picked her from behind. Kiba chuckled. Now that she's given her name, on my honor as a swordsman, I'll have to reveal myself. He murmured before striding out of the shadows of the storage building. He was heading straight for the baseball pitch. That idiot, I muttered in complaint, though I trailed along after him nonetheless. He is pretty cool though, I thought as I watched him from behind. I am Yuto Kiba, Knight of Rias Gremory, and I'm Issei Hyodo, her pawn. The two of us gave our names to the enemy knight named Carlamine. The female knight flashed a joyous smile. I'm glad to see Rias Gremory's Familia boasts at least 2 honorable warriors, although I do question your sanity, coming out to face me directly. Hey, come on now, is she calling us crazy? But I do adore fools like you two. Shall we begin? With that, Carlamine drew her sword from her scabbard. Kiba replied with his blade too. A duel between 2 knights. I've been looking forward to this. It's been a while since I had a proper bout, he responded defiantly. Judging by the grin of his, he wasn't lying. Well said, Knight of Rias Gremory. Carlamine leaped into action, her attacks flying towards Kiba as she was launching into a dance. Sparks flew wildly as their blades made contact. Perhaps they were both knights, their movements were unbelievably fast. The fight had only just started, but their swords moved swifter than my eyes could perceive. Kiba and Carlamine both kept appearing and disappearing in different spots across the field. What am I supposed to do exactly? It would have been tactless of me to try to help Kiba. He was in the middle of a one-on-one duel after all. Maybe I should encourage him, I wondered. You look bored. I spun around, only to find a woman approaching who had half of her face hidden behind a mask. As I recalled, she was a rook. The very next instant, another figure appeared. Good grief. I can't stand people like that. All they ever think about is swords, swords, swords. And did you see that face Carlamine pulled when we sacrificed the pawns? You would think that she didn't approve of Lord Riser's strategy. And now, she's gone and found a cute little boy who shares her fetish for swinging swords around. A new beauty, openly voicing her complaints, was wearing a dress that looked like a European princess. Her hair was bound up on both sides of her head in intricate braids. She really did give off a regal sort of presence. Apparently, we've been surrounded by the lookouts who Riser had dispatched to the athletic grounds. The bishop was staring at me with half-lidded eyes. What is it? I thought. So you're the pawn Lady Rias Gremory keeps fawning over. She has a strange sense of taste, that one. How dare she speak so rudely about the prez? She may have had a pretty face, but she had a poisoned tongue. I leapt to a safe distance of readying myself against these two opponents. Boosted gear, standby.
Boost!
I started powering up my sacred gear. I had no choice but to leave the knight to Kiba and take these two on myself. The princess-like bishop, however, let out an exasperated sigh. I won't fight you. Isabella, why don't you take care of him? The masked woman, Isabella, nodded. Her companion withdrew to the sidelines. What's with this? Her Highness doesn't feel like fighting? That was always our plan. Why don't we pass the time together? Sure. That's fine and all, but what about that bishop? I asked. I could hardly believe she wasn't in the mood to fight. Wasn't this an important game for her side? I had no idea what to do, faced with an opponent who had practically abandoned the match. The masked woman placed a hand on her forehead, her expression troubled. Don't worry about her. She's unique. For the most part, she'll just be watching. What's that supposed to mean? I blurted out. Spectating shouldn't have been an option. Did this rating game not matter to them? Well, that's Ravel Phoenix, Master Riser's younger sister. She's only joined Master Riser's familia because of a special circumstance, but she's still his blood sister. Huh? That beauty right there is Riser's sister? That bird bastard's? Huh? What? She waved to me from a good distance, as if amused by my sudden realization. It didn't feel real. Not only had Riser let his younger sister join his familia, but he let her fight in battles. Master Riser has a certain take on it. There's a social meaning to having your sister in your harem. I mean, it's incestuous, right? There are a lot of people out there who dig that kind of thing. I'm not into sisters, though. It's more for show than anything else. That's how we put it, if I'm not mistaken. That jackass really is a total pervert. Still, I can understand why he might have wanted his sister in his harem. I definitely wish I had a younger sister. No, stop it. I shook my head. She's his sister. And that's why she isn't gonna fight. Fine by me. Let's do this, pawn of Rias Gremory, Isabella called out. The masked woman lunged forward, her fist brushing past my cheek as she threw a punch. What? Luckily, I shifted to the side by pure reflex. Huh. So you can dodge with moves like that. My apologies. I should have given you more credit. Let's step this up a notch or two. Her body swayed strangely left to right for a second, and then Isabella launched into a fury of unbelievable attacks from all sorts of impossible angles. Whoa. No sooner had I dodged an elbow strike than Isabella's hand lashed out towards me like a whip. Is this one of those flicker jabs used in boxing? Something like that was sure to hurt if connected. I couldn't launch into a counterattack until my own boosted gear was sufficiently powered up. It was all I could do to stay on the defensive. I desperately fought to avoid her attacks. Gah! An intense pain tore through my abdomen. Isabella had kicked me. I had been so preoccupied with her punches that I haven't even been paying attention to what she was doing with her legs. The strike threw me off balance, and her next move was coming straight for my face. A combination move of those flicker jabs pounded my head. Believe me when I said it really hurt.
Boost!
That was my 5th boost. 5 increases probably would have been enough if I had been facing another pawn, but they still weren't enough to take on a rook. Works were second only to queens in value. After all, I couldn't afford to take a risk in any attack that wasn't going to be enough. Despite crossing my arms to guard against a flurry of blows, each strike still carried an immense force behind it. If this kept up, I was going to be retired in no time. Seizing on a break of her flicker jabs, I threw myself backwards. Isabella's attack finally came to a stop, but still she was maintaining a light footing. There was no telling when she might launch into another barrage. Thank goodness for all those sparring sessions with Kiba and Konako. They've really been proven their worth. Now I knew how to discern when my opponent was about to cease their attack. What's more, Rias had taught me how to escape, which had enabled me to safely get some distance. The rook broke into a grin. I underestimated you. To tell you the truth, I expected that kick to be the end. Rias Gremory has trained you well. Your physical endurance is impressive. My physical endurance? Is it really that good? In a serious battle, the most important thing of all is your stamina. Any idiot can fight, but it takes considerable fortitude to keep going beyond a couple of minutes. Combat requires strength and mental fortitude. Just avoiding your opponent's attacks takes significant effort. The fact that you can do so speaks to long hours of physical training. My chest tightened. All that arduous training and Rias' cruel demands, suffering through those early morning marathons and carrying boulders up mountains, had made me feel like I was going to die. Admittedly, I had doubts of whether it would be really doing any good, but Rias never gave up and stayed by my side through it all. My eyes grew moist. Before I knew it, I was shedding tears in front of my opponents. Prez, I can fight on my own now. All your efforts have paid off. Losing couldn't have been further from my mind at this point. I was going to win this whole thing for Rias. Some rook wasn't going to stop me. Perhaps I said too much. You seem emboldened, Isabella remarked. Rook Isabella. I'm the weakest member of Rias Gremory's Familia, and I don't have much combat experience, but I'm still gonna defeat you, I declared with confidence. A sword cut through the air. It was the sound of Kiba's weapon, the Holy Eraser. His sacred gear took the form of a sword wrapped in darkness, and it consumed light. Despite being up against such a strong weapon, the other knights seemed to manage to deflect it and send the blade flying across the hilt. I'm afraid your sacred gear won't work against me, Carloman quipped. I couldn't tell if his sword was wreathed in flame, or if it was made out of fire itself. I wasn't sure. Whatever the case, it looked like it being Kiba's. However, Kiba, far from shrinking back, flashed a dauntless grin. Then I have something to tell you too. Unfortunately, this isn't all my sacred gear is capable of. What? Nonsense. Knight of the House of Gremory, it is beneath the dignity of a swordsman to... Freeze, Kiba said in a low growl. At that moment, something began to gather around his now bladeless sword. Huh? I felt a sudden chill. A whiff of frigid air began to blow. At that moment, Kiba's sword started to freeze. Ice gathered at its hilt, expanding outward into a shape of a blade. With a shattering sound, Kiba's sword changed into a weapon of crystalline ice. Any matter of flame will perish in the face of my sword. Flame deleter, Kiba declared. A frozen sword? So Kiba's sacred gear isn't just a blade of darkness? Everyone except Kiba looked utterly amazed, though it was to be expected. To me, it seemed like that pretty boy had just done the impossible. Absurd! You're telling me you have two sacred gears? Carloman loosed a horizontal slash with her burning weapon, her face filled with frustration and bewilderment. The moment her flame sword met Kiba's frigid one, it was engulfed in ice. With an echoing sound, the enemy knight's weapon shattered. Despite such a loss, Carloman didn't let off her attacks. She cast her broken weapon aside, unsheathing a fresh short sword from her hip. Raising it to the sky, she declared, "We, the proud servants of the House of Phoenix, reign supreme over the elements of wind, flame, and life itself. Let's see how you endure this blazing vortex." A roiling whirlwind of red-hot flames began to swirl in the middle of the baseball pitch, centered around Carloman. The blistering air was already searing my skin. That lunatic. Has she forgotten her own allies are still here? Isabella spat out as she raised her arms to shield her face. The hot blast of air began to melt Kiba's ice sword, yet Kiba himself remained unfazed. I see. So you're trying to smother us with heat. But I'm afraid you're gonna have to. He paused there, holding once again his bladeless sword in front of him. Then he declared a powerful tone. Stop. With a thundering sound, the torrent of flame was sucked right into the hilt of Kiba's sword. Right after a few seconds, the wind ceased, and the baseball pitch was silent again. Refreshing calm. It's been a while since I had to use more than 2 swords in one battle. In his hand, he gripped a unique circular sort of edged weapon. A strange, seemingly impossible cyclone was rotating in the center of it. I had to wonder if he'd somehow captured Carmine's fire vortex attack. Since when did he have a sword like that? Multiple sacred gears? Don't tell me you steal sacred gears of others and make them your own, Carmine asked, incredulous. Kiba, however, shook his head. I don't have multiple sacred gears, nor have I acquired extra ones. I forged them myself. You forged them? Indeed. Sword birth, the ability to forge all manner of demonic blades. That is the true name of my sacred gear. This is what it's capable of. As Kiba turned his palm to the ground, multiple swords stabbed into the earth, each of a different size and shape. If what he had said was true, they were all distinct demonic swords.
Boost!
That was it. 150 seconds exactly. I was ready. I gathered a mass of power in my hand, shaped into a first image that came into mind, and unleashed. Rias' advice sounded in the back of my mind. The easiest way for me to use my power was to focus on the most destructive thing imaginable. In my case, that was the Satoru Saramago Dragon Wave attack from the Sirius Dragon Orb. Boosted gear, now!
Explosion!
A massive ball of energy accumulated in my hands. I extended both hands outward, the one on top of the other, and imagined myself unleashing a blast of raw energy as the power flowed through me. Even when using this attack, I had to play it carefully. It wouldn't do if I unleashed the same level of power that I had destroyed that mountain back in our training camp. If I destroyed the new school building, the president's plans would have been thrown into disarray. I had to restrain myself as much as possible. Ultimate move, dragon shot, I screamed into my mind. A torrent of demonic power burst forth from my outstretched hands. The force of the blast threw me backward. The blinding light that erupted from the palm flooded my eyes. It was huge. That massive power had to have been at least 5 times the size of my own body. It coursed towards Rias's rook at tremendous speed. Rias had said that the most troubling piece in the raiding game was always the rook. That was because it possessed such a high level of both offensive and defensive potential. While that might have made the piece sound kind of plain, such abilities were still pretty terrifying. It was most common for a demon to assign a role of a rook to someone who already possessed considerable skills in those areas. However, there were those who adopted other strategies too. For instance, there was some demons who gave the rook pieces to individuals with high-class demonic power or incredible speed. Those who specialized in demonic magic tended to have weak physical constitutions. Being assigned to the attributes of a rook could compensate for that weakness. Similarly, granting the role to someone who was already swift on their feet resulted in a high-level jack of all trades. Above all, rooks possessed a special technique similar to a pawn's promotion move, castling. They could switch positions with their king at an instant. According to Rias, this was their most troubling ability. It couldn't be used if the king was currently in check, but it was still a formidable skill to have. Whether to increase their latent abilities or compensate for their weaknesses was up to the leader of the familia, but there was countless ways to making use of a rook. That was why I had to take down the one in front of me with a single shot. Isabella, don't try to counter it. Run. Riser's knight Carlemine screamed. Isabella, who it seemed had been about to try to meet my attack, instantly left to safety. She managed to avoid the blast just in time. My dragon shot, having missed its target, flew off into the distance. It was barreling straight for the replica of the school's tennis courts. A deafening sound shook the earth. There was a brilliant red flash followed by a buffeting blast of wind. When the dust settled, I turned back to the tennis courts, my eyes opening wide in surprise. They were gone. The tennis courts, along with the surrounding parts of the athletic track, had been completely obliterated. Did I do that with just one blow? Even if it was a replica, that single attack had completely destroyed the portion of the school grounds. Nothing remained of the tennis courts but a huge crater. Even though I tried to restrain my power of my attack, it had still been extremely devastating. I was forced to acknowledge just how insane my sacred gear was. Isabella, take down that pawn. His sacred gear has the power to turn the tide of the match. Carlemine cried out from across the battlefield. At that instruction, Riser's rook set her sights on me. Understood. We can't afford to let you get a promotion with that boosted gear of yours. I'll take you down first. Sorry to say, but I'm not the same fighter I was a moment ago. At this level, I'm as strong as a high-class demon. She came flying towards me, launching a punch into a flurry of kicks. Even in the face of such a barrage, I held firm against each blow, concentrating my energy into my left arm all the while. I countered, hurling my fist towards Isabella. She crossed her arms, hoping to shield herself, and yet the weight of my swing broke through her guard, sending the masked rook flying. Alright, I thought. I made physical contact. That meant I could use one of my other skills. Burst! Dress break! At that moment, Isabella's clothes blew clean off, revealing her dewy, naked body. Her breasts were huge. Her well-toned body was so fit and tight. I made sure to burn the image into my memory. What have you done? She reflexively covered herself with her hands as best as she could. This was exactly the sort of reaction I had been expecting. This was it. Without a moment's delay, I gathered a small mass of energy of demonic power into my right hand and imagined myself hurling it toward her. Go! The wave of energy built up tremendous force as it sped towards the mark. How could you? The burst of energy enveloped Isabella before she had the chance to answer. A huge shock wave rippled outward. By the time the vibration subsided, Isabella was lying flat on the ground, her body encased in a glowing aura. Slowly, she turned transparent before disappearing altogether.
Reset.
My boosted gear had reached its limit. One of Lord Riser Phoenix's rooks has been retired, echoed Grayfia's voice. All right, I cried out with joy at having defeated such a powerful opponent. I'd proven myself as a capable fighter, and I had all those long hours of training with the press to thank for it. Having settled my fight with Isabella, I paused to catch my breath. I had used up a lot of physical stamina and demonic power. Attacks like my dragon shot were only really possible only drawing out my latent energy within me. So the stronger my attack was, the more exhausted I became. I was content being at a level of using that move 2 more times. But I had a feeling that a third use of it was bound to leave me so weak that I would likely to faint on the spot. I didn't trust myself to get off more than one more shot. I was going to have to be careful going forward. With Isabella defeated, Carlemine snickered at me. It looks like both Isabella and I underestimated that pawn and his boosted gear. I was unwise to think of him as such an ordinary foot soldier. Is she praising me? If so, I had no complaint. Her words filled me with a touch of pride, actually. But that is a cruel technique, stripping away a woman's clothes. It is rather undignified. Our Issei's a bit of a pervert. Allow me to apologize on his behalf, Kiba said. Hearing him apologize was a little surprising. I didn't quite know how to respond to that. But a wielder of a demon sword, what a good fortune, Carmine said, holding her short sword with a backhand grip. It seems like I fated to do battle with a swordsman armed with a unique weapon. Oh? You fought against the other demon swords? Kiba asked with clear curiosity. Not a demon sword, a holy sword. At this, Kiba's expression changed to of unbelievable bloodlust. Seriously, he looked like some kind of murderer. A horrible, chilling aura filled the air. My whole body was shivering. There was a frigid glint into Kiba's eyes. Tell me about the wielder of this holy sword, he said, his voice almost imperceptibly low. What terrifying hostility. He was just as petrifying as the Prez when she got angry. A holy sword, I thought? What does that have to do with anything? Oh, you don't know him? But I'm afraid we're both swordsmen, you and I. Words are not enough. My blade will be the one to answer your question. I see. In that case, so long as you can talk, it doesn't matter if I send you to the brink of death. A savage animosity emanated from the two fighters that was so powerful. It made the earth shake and my skin crawl. Kiba, what's come over you? What happened to the refreshing smile of yours? Overwhelmed by his change in personality, I almost didn't notice the several newcomers approaching. Here they are. Huh? What happened to Isabella? Don't tell me she got lost. Other members of Rias' familia had begun to show up. I remembered their faces. There were 2 pawns, 1 bishop, 1 knight. Hold on. Was that all of them? Uh-oh. Did that mean that the stage of a massive battle was here or something? It was just Kiba and me. Akano was probably still busy dealing with that queen. Every now and then, I could catch the sound of powerful thunderclaps echoing through the sky. As for Prez and Azia, well, I had no idea where they were. Had they been following the plan? They should have left the headquarters. Hey you, there, pawn! One of Rias' servants called out. What now? I grimaced. Master Rias said that he's going to fight your dear princess one-on-one. See? The girl pointed out to a place high above. Turning in that direction, I spotted a figure with raging wings of flame and the other with the pitch black hair on top of the roof of the new school building. The figure with the black wings had crimson hair. It was Rias. Issei, can you hear me? Issei, came Azia's voice through my earpiece. Azia? What happened? What's the Prez doing? We're both at the top of the school building. Rias challenged you to a duel, and she accepted. That's how we managed to reach here without any trouble, but now... What's her goal here? I had no idea what I was supposed to do. Seeing my concentration, Rias' sister called out to me, her lips curling with a cutting grin. My brother must be in a good mood, seeing as how well you're doing. He's probably taken pity on Lady Rias. After all, we would have obviously won if the game had continued like normal. At this rate, you'd have all been defeated before he even got a turn himself. Rias' sister, Ravel, covered her mouth with her hand as she let out a shrill guffaw. Ugh, she was starting to get on my nerves. The Prez is strong, and Akira will help her as soon as she takes down your queen. Not only that, but Kiba will take you all down with his demon sword combo. And with my boosted gear, the crimson-haired princess of annihilation, the Vestal of thunder, sword birth, and the boosted gear. Such grand-sounding names, but your opponent is a phoenix. No matter what your amazing powers possess, you cannot defeat the immortal bird. Even a phoenix has its weaknesses, I shot back. Ravel snorted. Are you going to keep beating him until he loses the will to fight? Or are you planning to blast him with that god-class finishing move of yours? Do you really think you could win this match? Don't make me laugh. What's wrong with that? From the very beginning, Lady Rias never stood a chance. All you can do is despair in the face of absolute immortality. With that, Rachel clicked her fingers, and the remaining members of Riser's Familia circled around me. Carlemine, Rachel called out, we'll leave the night to you, but if you lose, the rest of us won't stick to one-on-one combat. We'll take them down together. Or do you want to drag the name of the House of Phoenix through the mud even more than you already have? Carlemine responded with a reluctant nod. Cirrus, as you will. A wild-looking young woman stepped forward. She carried a large sword slung over her back. Cirrus is my brother's other knight. Unlike Carlemine, she doesn't concern herself with that chivalry nonsense. She crushes her enemies, and that's all there is to it. This knight drew her sword from the sheath on her back. It was a huge weapon, and the blade was incredibly wide. It hit from that undoubtedly would have been fatal. But now she could add the finishing touches. As for the rest, Ni, Li, meow, meow, meow. It was the two girls with animal ears who responded. They were pawns, if I remember correctly. These two are beast warriors. They specialize in martial arts. The cat-eared girls vanished from sight. The next moment, two powerful blows dug into my abdomen and face. I didn't even have time to cry out in pain as they laid into my entire body. They moved so fast, I couldn't even tell where their fists were. Boosted gear.
Boost.
I started doubling my power, but my new opponent's attacks only grew stronger. Ni, Li. The boosted gear doubles the strength of his abilities every 10 seconds. If you let him double 3 times, he'll beat you just like he beat the Chainsaw Twins, Il and Neil. You have to finish him within 20 seconds. He can't fight while he's boosting. All he'll be able to do is run. Aim for his legs. Be careful he doesn't touch you with his hand too. Otherwise, he'll use that disgusting technique of his to strip your clothes. At that explanation, the two beast girls flashed looks of fear and disgust. You're the worst, freak. Shut up. What's the problem? What's wrong with mastering a move to strip girls naked? All you do is think with your loins, one of them said. And what's wrong with that? I'm a guy, I replied, knowing the answer was likely pointless. It had been surprising to learn that Ravel had discerned my weaknesses so quickly. God, ow, damn it. They had gone straight for my legs. A low kick collided with my thigh. Who would have thought that a beast girl could have kicked so ferociously? I wondered if perhaps their basic stats were higher than those of normal humans. Countering recklessly with my boosted gear while still charging wasn't an option. Starting from 0 would have made me a sitting duck. I had to run. Another low kick. It was certainly effective. The pain shooting through my legs kept me rooted in place. Gah. The next was a heavy punch dug into my face. My eyes caught a streak of blood that had come from my nose to my mouth. I could feel the tears welling up from my eyes from sheer pain. Issei, damn it! Kiba, realizing my situation, quickly adjusted his hold on his sword, positioning himself to finish Carlemine in a hurry. Carlemine, keep him busy for another 10 seconds. I know you can't beat their knight, but we only need a little longer to bury their dragon user, so just tie him down until we're done. Rise's sister called out with an ecstatic laugh. Damn her, watching from high, she was seriously getting on my nerves. My legs wouldn't move anymore. I fell to my knees. It was no good. There was no strength left in my limbs, and my mind was starting to feel groggy. I'd been beaten down too much. Shit, I cursed myself. If I pass out, I'll be retired. I couldn't let that happen. There was no way I would drop out before even helping Rias. A powerful tremor shook the battlefield. On the roof of the new school building, Riser and Rias were launching attack after attack at each other. Rias' crimson power and Riser's furious shocks collided in midair. Riser appeared unharmed. His clothes didn't even look scuffed. Rias's, on the other hand, were torn in a number of places. Her breathing was growing ragged too. From the very beginning, Lady Rias never stood a chance. All you could do is sit there in the face of absolute immortality. Raven's words echoed through my mind. Are we really about to lose? Is Rias? What's going to happen? Will Rias have to... with him? I couldn't let that happen. I had to find a way to get back on my feet. I had to stand, even if it meant getting beaten to a pulp. Why did I want to keep fighting though? Because I liked her? That was part of it. Love wasn't my weakness. More than that, however, I wanted to protect the Prez. It didn't have anything to do with pacts or promises. She had to remain the grand, majestic person I most longed for. The one who ran her hand through her brilliant crimson hair. So give me your strength, Red Dragon Emperor. The Prez was the person I most admired. Rias had said that she didn't want to marry Riser. She had told me to fight, which was why I had to fight. Hey, Red Dragon Emperor, are you listening? Answer me. Give me your strength, boosted gear.
Dragon Booster!
My sacred gear flashed with crimson light, but it wasn't enough. It still wasn't enough. I needed more. More. Last time it was for Azia. Now I need it for Rias. Show me what you got. Boosted gear.
Dragon Booster! Second Liberation!
A voice I never heard before sounded from the gauntlet, and as it did so, a red aura enveloped my arm. All at once, the gauntlet began to transform. Whoa, it changed again? The gauntlet, a crystallization of extraordinary power, had gained a new form. In addition to the gemstone embedded in an area covering the back of my hand, another appeared on my arm, and the overall shape of the object had changed ever so slightly. What's happening? No sooner had the thought crossed my mind, however, the fresh knowledge flowed into it. So that's how I used this new power. I found my lips curling into a grin. In that moment, I understand that, no, we could be stronger still. Kiba! Gathering my strength, I poured the energy into my legs and shot up to my feet. I could feel my body screaming in agony, but I had to keep moving just a little more. I started running towards Kiba. Use your sacred gear, I cried out. Kiba looked as if he didn't understand what I was saying, but nonetheless he plunged his sword into the ground and declared, Sword birth! With a brilliant flash of light, countless demon swords burst forth from the ground. This was it. I reached out to the burst of light and cried, Boosted gear, second power! I increased the energy with the boosted gear and directed it straight to the ground. My target was Kiba's demon sword creation ability. Boosted gear, gift!
Transfer!
A metallic rumbling sound began to issue from all around. The entire athletic area was a sea of swords. Blades of every shape imaginable jutted forth from the ground, reaching up to the sky. Everywhere I looked, there were countless more. They had all been forged from Kiba's ability, by the way of my second power, boosted gear gift. A bequest from the Red Dragon Emperor. In effect, it allowed me to transfer my accumulated power to another person or object to increase its own potential. I channeled my power through the ground into Kiba's sacred gear, and this was the result. Kiba's weapon creation skill had been elevated, and so the area around it was now riddled with new swords. Impossible. Is this another one of the dragon's powers? The voices of Riser's servants were filled with anguish, and understandably so. They'd all been skewered by countless blades that had so suddenly erupted from the earth. Their bodies glowed with light and they disappeared from the field. I had taken every one of them off the board. 2 of Lord Riser Pond's, 2 of his knights, and 1 of his bishops had been retired. Yes! As Graphia's announcement echoed across the field, I adopted a proud victory pose. One sudden move had taken them all down. I can do this. We can do this. With this new gift ability, I could boost not only Kiba's, but also Rias and Akuno's too. Even Azia's healing abilities could be bolstered. With this, there was no doubt in my mind that we were going to take Riser down. Issei, I'm impressed. That power. Kiba glanced around at the new landscape. He looked to be taken aback by the efficiency of his own ability when pushed into overdrive. Yup, I used my gauntlet to boost your powers, Kiba. At that moment, the last thing I'd been expecting to hear sounded in my ears. Lady Rias Gremory's queen has been retired. What? Neither Kiba nor I could believe what we just heard. It was unbelievable. Akuno was the strongest of us all. The ground shook violently as a familiar explosive sound reverberated. It had come from where Kiba was standing. Panicked, I glanced towards him, only to freeze in place. Kiba, our knight, was lying flat on the ground, smoke rising up from his body. The earth around him had been covered in blood. Before I could even move to reach him, his body flashed with light and disappeared. Lady Rias Gremory's knight has been retired, came yet another disheartening announcement. I could only stand rooted to the ground in a mute daze at this incomprehensible turn of events. With almost everyone on both sides out on the raiding game, I was left standing alone on the athletic grounds. Without Kiba, the demon sword littering the area around me began to shatter one by one. The fragments of those blades glittered in silver light as they danced through the air. The whole scene gave everything a phantasmic atmosphere. Only after a few seconds, the weapons had faded away. Unfortunately, I didn't have time to grieve this new development. A shadow floated into my field of vision from overhead. When I looked up, I saw it was the hooded mage, Riser's queen. She was supposed to have been fighting Akuno. Thoughts began to race through my mind. Had only Akuno been retired? This queen didn't even look injured. What was going on? Akuno couldn't have lost. Another night crushed. Rise's queen said in a disservious laugh. At that moment, a wave of anger overtook me. Are you the one that did this to Akuno and Kiba? The explosion had been the same kind that caught Konako, and now this mage lady was taking Kiba too? Get down here. I'll tear you apart. For Akuno, for Konako, and for Kiba. I'll beat you to a pulp. I'll kill you. I pointed up into the air, trying to provoke the queen. Even after such a threat, she merely broke into a scornful grin before losing interest and soaring off towards the roof of the new school building. Wait, get back here! Enraged, I took after her. Like hell I was about to let her get away. The present Azia were up there. I refused to allow that damn queen to hurt any more of my friends. I'll kill her first. My legs gave way, and I tumbled down to the ground. I tried to pull myself back up, but I had no strength left. My whole body was trembling uncontrollably. The reason was obvious. I reached my limit. It was only thanks to Rias' training that lasted so long. But this was the clear outcome for someone who lacked any real combat experience. My heart was racing painfully fast, and each breath was a chore. Everything ached so painfully and it was difficult to form thoughts. My mental state wasn't particularly good either. I had lost my friends right in front of my eyes. It wasn't particularly unusual to lose your mind after being exposed to one heart-rending scene after another. Still, I had to get up. Even with this situation as grim as it was, my only concern was standing back up to going to help Rias. I cried out at the top of my lungs, hoping to muster whatever strength I could. As long as I was still in the game, I had a chance. Slowly, I rose to my feet and turned towards the school building. Okay, I need to get up on that rooftop now. The plan was quickly dashed, however, when a voice called out to me. Are you still raring to fight? I looked over my shoulder, only to see Riser's sister, Ravel, descending from above on her black wings. Evidently, Kiba's demon sword had failed to take her down. Perhaps she dodged by flying high up in the air. As I thought about it, I realized that announcement had only said that one of Riser's bishops had retired. I readied myself, adapting a fighting posture, but Ravel merely shrugged. "I'm not interested in fighting anymore," she said. "I mean, no matter how you look at it, you've already lost." "Shut up. The Prez is still standing, and so am I." "That dragon power is unnerving. To transfer your energy into someone else to boost their abilities, that's not normal. I shudder to think what would happen if you did that to the Vestal of Thunder or Lady Rias. In future rating games, that ability might pose a threat to even the greatest of opponents. But your team has lost this match." "Because the Phoenix is immortal?" "That too. But the real reason is that neither you nor Lady Rias has any real fight left in you, right? Even if you could heal your wounds, that won't restore your strength. Look at you. You're all worn out. Defeat is inevitable. And besides..." Ravel paused there. She produced a container of something that looked like holy water. That should have been impossible, though. "Phoenix tears. Have you heard of them? They can heal any wound." Phoenix tears? Rias had mentioned them during our training camp. I'd never expected Rise's group to actually have any. "Don't call us cheats, if that's what you were thinking. Your Familia has twilight healing, no?" Ravel said, as if she was reading my mind. "Besides, the rules clearly state that Phoenix Tears can only be used by 2 demons in one game. In today's case, our queen and I are the only ones with them. That's how Yuba Luna defeated your Vestal of Thunder. They fetch at a high price on the market, you know, selling the tears that brought great prosperity to the House of Phoenix. Yep, ever since the rating game came into fashion, we've been doing pretty well. Immortality and Phoenix Tears make us pretty tough to beat." Ravel kept prattling on with one proud boast after another. Phoenix Tears. If Riser's team could heal in the midst of battle, not even Akino could have stood a chance. Wallowing in self-pity was unlikely to get me anywhere, however. Steeling myself, I continued forward. Hey, hold up. Are you ignoring me? You're gonna lose anyway, so you're better off staying here and chatting with me, don't you think?" "Shut up. Talk to yourself, chicken girl. Come any closer and I'll strip you naked." Ravel retreated with a half step, reflexively shielding her body. It was the exact sort of response I was expecting. I took off towards the new school building with Ravel's shrill voice at my back. Entering the building through the back entrance, I headed down the corridors. My destination was the rooftop, and Rias. Something pulsed through me. I could feel my attributes changing. I had entered enemy territory, which meant that I had satisfied the necessary conditions. Promotion, Queen! Power welled up inside me. I took down the corridor, but... I violently collapsed to the floor. All the feelings in my legs were gone. It was the telltale sign that I surpassed my limits in physical endurance. Even though I increased my abilities, I had 0 left to actually use them. A little thing like that wasn't going to stop me, though. I was going to crawl to the rooftop if I had to. Akano was gone, Kiba was gone, Konako was gone. Each of my allies had been defeated. I was the only one left capable of protecting Rias. What good was I if I couldn't keep moving? I won't lose. I won't allow it. Prez, I'll give you this victory. Just you watch. Once again, I rose, only to come crashing down again and again. So long as I could keep moving forward with each fall, I was going to reach my destination. My face and body were slick with sweat, blood, tears, and saliva, but I was almost there. At last, the door to the rooftop came to view. Without pausing to catch my breath, I forced it open. There, in front of me, Rias and Riser were still going at it. Ozzy was watching on helplessly from a distance. It was reassuring to see that they were both still okay. That said, Rias wasn't exactly having an easy time. Her beautiful crimson hair was in disarray, and her clothes were in tatters. I took a deep breath and bellowed, Issei Hyodo, reporting for duty. Everyone's gazes turned towards my direction. Issei, Rias and Azia cried back in unison. At last, I made it. I didn't have to keep them waiting any longer. That dragon brat. Ravel let him go, did she? Riser clicked his tongue in irritation. Perhaps his younger sister was going through some kind of rebellious phase. It was only because she hadn't tried to stop me that I made it this far. At that moment, Riser's queen alighted from above to stand next to him. Master Riser, shall I take care of this palm boy and Lady Rias' dear little bishop? You should know, he possesses a rather awkward ability. He can strip his opponent's clothes right off. The queen took a step in my direction, but Riser held out his hand to keep her back. Are you worried that he might extinguish the flames to protect my body? I wonder. Taking his personality into consideration, I have a feeling that his technique will only work on ladies. I will face Rias and her servants by myself. That's the only way to settle this, wouldn't you say? What's with that self-confident attitude of his? Is he trying to give us some kind of last stand because he'll be sure to win? Riser hadn't been wrong about my dress bag ability though. Indeed, it was only affected on a feminine form. That was how I created this ability, by imagining naked bodies of women. I didn't want to see a guy naked, let alone touch one. I used it to peel fruits and vegetables, but I still had my doubts it would work on a man. Quit messing around, Riser. Rias cried out with indignation as she hurled a ball of demonic energy straight for his face. He didn't even try to dodge it. Whoa, it blew half of his head off. Rias did it. At least, that's what I thought. A wave of red-hot flames erupted from the gaping wound. The fire coalesced into a shape of Riser's head, and when it subsided, his face was whole again. Riser stretched his neck as if nothing happened. Immortality. So, this is the regeneration ability of the Phoenix. Give up, Rias. This continued resistance of yours doesn't reflect on your father or Lord Syzax. You're out of options. We all know how this is gonna play out. It's checkmate. Riser spoke as if admonishing her. Unfazed, Rias glared back. Be quiet, Riser. I won't give up. You know how this is gonna end? You think that I have no more options. Well, sorry to disappoint, but this king is still raring to go. She said it with a dauntless grin. I was getting pretty pumped up too. So long as Rias still had some fight left in her, this wasn't over. Trusting that we were going to turn this around somehow, I ran towards Rias, inserting myself between her and Riser. Azia, I called out. At this, Azia glanced timidly at Riser and his queen before approaching to join me. Neither Riser nor Yubaluna made any moves to come after either of us. That's not to say I expected them to, but they were clearly both getting a little too overconfident. Azia began to heal Rias' injuries and then attended to mine. As her hand touched our bodies, a warm pale green light enveloped us. She washed away my pain, leaving my body feeling as if the agony I'd been enduring was nothing but a bad dream. My swollen face returned to normal, and the numbness in my legs faded. Unfortunately, Azia's healing did nothing for the exhaustion. I was going to have to do something about my lack of stamina. Azia, once you finished healing me, get down. Azia looked startled. Judging by her shocked expression, she clearly hadn't been expecting me to say that. You need to stay back so you can heal the present me. You're our lifeline. There was a pained look on Azia's face, as if she wanted to say something. The blonde girl kept quiet and took a step back, however. That's fine, I thought, so long as she's safe. A sudden scream burst out from Azia's lips. What? A magic circle I never seen before appeared beneath her feet. It seemed to be preventing her from moving. Sorry about that, Rias said indifferently. I would feel bad dragging this out for you. I could have defeated her, but all I needed to do was stop her from being able to heal you. That magic circle will only be released once you take down my queen. I glanced at Eubeluna. She was holding out her hand, and her fingertips were glowing. Damn her. Azia was our last hope. There was no use complaining now. The last battle was about to begin. Prez, we're still doing this, right? Yeah. Judging by Rias' voice, she hadn't given up yet. We still had a chance. You, Ozzy, and I are the only ones left. But Ozzy's trapped and he's immortal. Not to mention, there's still 2 members of his familia standing. The odds don't look good. I said in a loud voice with a fearless smile. But I won't surrender. I don't know much about these things. I don't know how these things usually play out, but I don't care much about our options. All I'm going to do is fight, and I'll keep fighting until the very end. Well said, Issei. Let's take down Riser together, Rias said proudly. Of course, Prez. You hear that, Booster Gear? My master gave me an order. This should be pretty easy, right? All I gotta do is beat this guy into submission. That's all there is to it. Let's go.
Burst!
How I wish I hadn't heard that sound. As soon as the word emanated from the gemstone on the back of the gauntlet, my body felt suddenly heavy, and then seemingly stopped functioning entirely. I could feel myself losing consciousness. No, not yet. I crawled on all fours, coughing up a mouthful of something bitter and metallic. It was blood. My body had been pushed well past what it was capable of. The light on the back of my gauntlet faded away. I, its user, was no longer capable of functioning. I'd just been healed, though. I should have still been able to fight. Rias stared down at me. The boosted gear exhausts its user more than you can imagine. Continuously doubling your power is too extreme. The burden it places on your body goes beyond any regular sacred gear. Running around this battlefield, fighting my servants one after the next, you hit your maximum a long time ago. No, I thought, no matter what this bastard says, I'm not done. Rias looked at me with sorrow in her eyes. I felt a pang of guilt. This is no problem. I can stand. With no small amount of difficulty, I channeled every fiber in my being to drag myself up to my feet. How many times have I pulled myself back from the brink of death now? Let's go, Prez. With that last declaration, I took off towards Riser. An intense pain gripped my body. I've long lost count on how many times such a sensation has surged through me today. Over and over, I crumbled to the ground and made a total ass of myself. Prez, I can win this. I can still fight. Rias was already on her knees, no longer able to stand. She had used all her powers. She had attacked Riser countless times, inflicting more injuries on him than could be counted. But no matter what she did, he merely healed afterwards with a flash of fire, as if nothing had ever happened. I needed to protect her, and Azia too. I was the only one left that could. Riser pummeled his fist straight into my stomach, twisting and grinding his knuckles into my abdomen. Blood gushed from my mouth. I already vomited up so much, but apparently I still had more in me. My vision was becoming blurry. I shook my head, trying to restore my fading sight. I'm okay. I can win this. I'll beat Riser. This is my present to Rias. Something like that would make her smile, right? I swear, I can make both her and Azia happy. Thank you, Prez, for all the time you spent training me. It's all thanks to you I'm still standing. I might only be a pawn, but I'll be the mightiest pawn of all time. This time, Riser's fist dug deep into my face. The moment he hit me, everything seemed to start moving in slow motion. Prez, I can keep going. I have to keep my promise. I would win for her. It was over. Rias Gremory, was out of options. In other words, it was checkmate. None of us had any strength left to fight. Even so, he had still come for me. He alone had risen to continue fighting at my side. Issei. He was the only one who kept pushing on, who challenged Riser in the face of certain defeat. All that effort had been for nothing, though. Riser's last strike had finished him. Watching Issei fall numbly backwards, I found myself running towards him and taking him in my arms. He was covered in blood and sweat. To be honest, he looked terrible, and yet I loved him still. Issei, you fought well. You've done enough. You did everything you could. I whispered to him gently, but he continued to try to pull himself back to his feet. That's enough, Issei, I cried, but still he pushed my hands away. For what must have been the 100th time, Issei forced himself back upright. In wordless silence, he took a step forward and then another. My heart cried at his unrelenting intensity of spirit. Everyone around us watched on bated breath. His foe, Riser, approached him expressionlessly. No, if I kept this up, I would lose him forever. My cute little servant, my Issei. No matter what happened here, I was still going to adore him, to coddle him. I couldn't lose him in a place like this. Pacing forward, I put myself between him and Riser, holding Issei by his shoulders. Issei, stop! Can't you hear me? But I fell silent at what I saw. Of course, Issei had already lost consciousness. His eyes were vacant and his mouth hung slack. But somehow he kept pushing himself forward, step by grueling step. His clenched fist wouldn't stop shaking. Even now, you're still fighting for me. Before I knew it, tears were running down my cheeks. I reached out to touch his face. It was swollen, and I could sense nothing but his vigorous spirit that usually resided in him. Silly Issei. Though he was still trying to move forward, I wrapped my arms around him. You've done enough. With those words, his strength finally left his body, and he fell onto the ground in my arms. I held him close, laying him on my lap. I had promised him another lap pillow after all. He fought for me. Prez, I'll give you this victory, just you watch. He didn't even know how to properly make use of his demonic powers yet, but he still pushed onward across the battlefield with all of his heart. He hardly had any fighting experience. That boy should have been terrified. He could have lost his life countless times over. I won't surrender. I don't know much about how these things usually play out, and I don't care for our options. All I'm going to do is fight. I'll keep fighting until the very end. He was so battered and bruised, his fist badly swollen, and still, he was fighting for me. Issei was someone who was always smiling. He was always pouring his heart and soul into everything, and was always doing his absolute best for me. Standing there on that rooftop, I thought I was about to lose that smile forever. Thank you, Akano, Yuto, Konako, Azia, and Issei. Thank you for fighting so hard for someone as worthless as me. I softly stroked Issei's head once more before turning to Riser. You win. I concede. It was my first raiding game. My career had started with a bitter, grueling defeat. I knew I was never going to forget what happened that day. Red. I had a dream of red. An entity inside me suddenly scolded me. It was telling me that the power I've been wielding wasn't my true strength. Who was it, I wondered? The sacred gear? Something else lurking within me? Its lips curled upward in a flicker of incandescent flame.
You'll never go stronger like that.
An unknown voice echoed in my mind. The thing was more than just my imagination. It had come from somewhere deep inside me. Had it been my heart? No. It was my left arm.
You're an exceptional being, a vessel of a dragon. Don't make such a miserable sight of yourself again. Do you want the white one to laugh at you?
Are you the dragon who appeared in my dream? Was it you who gave me this power-up? I asked.
Indeed. That was what you desired, what I desired, and what the white one desired. So you managed to reach a new level.
Desired? What are you talking about? And just who is this white one?
You'll meet him one of these days. You and I are destined to do battle. Speaking of which, allow me to teach you how to use my true power.
Just who?
I am the Red Dragon Emperor, the Welsh Dragon Drake. I reside in your left arm, Issei.
The Welsh dragon Drake?
Losing is fine, so long as you're alive. Defeat can add to your strength, but it is only worthwhile if you can win the next time. Defeat followed by victory, followed by yet another victory. If you can do that, you will meet him one day.
What exactly is happening to me?
You'll understand soon enough. In the meantime, continue to develop your strength. I will grant you my power whenever you need it. What I give comes at a cost, but it will be worth the sacrifice. Use it to strike back at those who belittle you. That is what it means to be a dragon.